Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, we're going to talk about the fantasy, the fairy tale, the magic neverland that is muscle building. And we're going to discuss how much we actually know and why people still never get there. Before I get into that topic, if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. The best topic ideas I turn into videos just like this. All right, I'm joined by Faz Lips over on Instagram, on the YouTubes, and anywhere else, Faz?
Yeah, that's right. Instagram, YouTube's podcasts, Facebook, all over the place. Faz Lifts.
All right, so Faz, we're staring down the barrel of a gun known as Strength Standards. You and I did a video on this where we presented reasonable strength standard goals to build muscle, and maybe that was about a year ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So these are the charts that we kind of put together. These are in pounds for anybody keeping score. Faz, just before we dive in, cursory look, anything on there that you feel needs changing?
I think this is a pretty good list when we put it together. We both pretty much jived across the board on where we saw strength standards for both men and women. So it was pretty common. And I think it was based on what we've seen as good standards for lifters we've come across over the years, but also maybe taking a little bit from our powerlifting backgrounds in terms of sort of mid-range lifts, which are respectable. So yeah, I think it was a good range, and it seemed to strike a chord with a lot of people.
Now, but I'm going to get rid of that screen in just a second. Anybody that wants to, screenshot it, do it now. There's also a video where we talk about strength standards. You can head over to the main YouTube and just search strength standards, and you'll be able to find it. Now, this video is not simply about strength standards, Faz. Well, here's what I want to address. We are in a realm, a world, a state of existence where we have so much information on what it takes to build muscle. Mm-hmm. We have things like concepts like the strength standards we just looked at. We have very specific plans like nutrition plans. This is how you eat. You eat consistently. You eat X slightly above maintenance. We have all this information. Mm-hmm. We have even a modern supplement landscape where we can go to examine, and we kind of know the meta narrative of what is worth your time, what is not worth your time. We have so much information, Faz, that it could not be more plain and more obvious yet. And this is not a negative video. 90% of those watching will never come close to their goals. Mm-hmm. This is something I've been thinking about a lot the last week as a teacher and as a coach. How can I improve that? Are there anything that lacks in that bridge between where they are and where they want to go? Faz, a couple questions for you. What prevents people, despite all this information, from getting to where they need to go? And is there anything we can improve as coaches to help bridge that for them?
Okay, so I'm going to go into just a couple of minute deep dive into what I think the problem is. And for those of you guys listening at home, with my coaching for the past sort of 6 years or so, and with Steve's introduction there about how much information we have at our fingertips, we should be able to make progress, and he's quite right in that. Now, the biggest single factor that I've seen which prevents people from doing so is a combination of a few things. Firstly, I'm just going to set this up. So firstly, I think, and this is backed up with research and from my experience as well, most people, when they train and when they're starting a new program, they undershoot the weight that they should be using. So they tend to start a lot lighter than they need to. So that's the first thing. I think they undershoot that. And also in doing that, I think they don't work out as hard as they should do because they're just not reaching those levels of training which spur on muscle growth. So they're maybe leaving a few too many in the tank is what I'm trying to say. So that's the first thing. Now, you combine that with the fact that most people don't stick to a routine for longer than a few weeks before they change something up. Now, just put those two factors together for a second, Steve. You've got somebody who, whenever they start a new routine, they are undershooting what they're doing. They're undershooting the reps in reserve, or overshooting the reps in reserve, undershooting how many they leave in the tank. They're not pushing themselves as hard because they're at the beginning of a routine, so they're just kind of getting used to it. And then every few weeks, they're changing routine. Now, that's something which will carry someone forward for years. Now, they do that for a few weeks. doesn't lead to a great deal of progress. Like you and I know, Steve, you've got to train like an absolute beast to gain any reasonable amount of muscle mass and strength on a regular basis. Now, if you skip that and you never get into that gaining phase of a routine, because as soon as it gets hard, you skip out to a new routine, that can hold your progress back for not only months, but years. And then the worst thing is, at a certain point, you are so ingrained and so trained and institutionalized into that weak style of training that you don't even know what it is to train hard. And I'm sure you can relate to this with people that you've seen over the years, Steve. They don't train hard enough. And a large part of it, I feel, is because of this. It's this undershooting at the beginning, chronic routine changing, leading to this almost like a pandemic of never training hard enough. That's, right. I'm going to put that on the table. I think that's number one reason.
Well, I want to touch on that a little bit. When people come to me for coaching, there's a lot of stuff out there, Faz, that people like to put together spreadsheets and 15-week programs, and they're doing different sets and rep ranges every week, and a lot of smoke and mirrors. And there's nothing inherently wrong with those types of programs. But when you come to me as a coach, we're gonna dig in, and we're gonna see what you can do over 4 or 5 months in the same program. Because what I want to do is see where things are breaking down. Mentally, physically, I want to change programs. I have actually lost, I probably lose 1 or 2 clients a year, because even after I've had it as early as 4 weeks, when do we change programs? Like to what? The same exercises? So I've had that happen a couple times a year, where someone wants to change programs that's so ingrained. That's a big one. One thing I run into as well is I make mandatory in coaching that I see a workout log. And if you are paying attention, you see like Joe Smith did 115 on overhead press last time, and today he decided to do 110 and made no notes of it. And like, Joe, why? Any reason why you? No, it just felt heavy.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But it's leaving yourself that out, and kind of constantly pulling people back up that hill. Like, you just can't randomly deload or unload, or if everything's fine, you just can't randomly be weaker. So those are 2 things I see: the fight against strength. Like, I'm just gonna unload today because it felt heavy. Yes, it felt heavy because it is heavy. That does not mean you can't lift it. Therein is the challenge that we have to deal with. We go to challenge ourselves and see what we can lift, and then try to improve next week. And like your point, obviously, the changing programs. I come from a world where we evolve programs unless we're doing a very specific type of cycle where we need to change sets and reps each week. So sorry to ramble on so long.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to touch on one thing that came up in my Q&A recently, which both of our rep systems came up. So one of the guys, Richard, he's a regular on both of our channels. He said that he's using your rep system. And he said, what do I think of rep systems? And this is where I see the advantage of rep systems. They do 2 big things. And the first is they allow for small bits of progression, which is great. So you have your rep system goal. I have my 8s, 5s, and 3s. Now, the second thing is the biggest advantage is they keep people on a path, right? It's like if you're doing the bench press, the incline bench, dips, and you're doing them on a rep system, you can carry that forward all year. And so the real value, I think, in these rep systems, whether it's yours, whether it's mine, whether it's somebody else's 16-week program, is it keeps them consistent. Because I think the number one problem, and you guys pop down in the comments if you like, if you're watching this, we have all the information in the world. We know how to do things. You've got great coaches telling you how to do things. But the biggest problem we have in the world is this chronic routine changing and then undershooting work ethic. So the rep goals and the rep systems that you use, like Steve's rep goal system, my 8s, 5s, and 3s, what they do is they keep people consistent and they lead to progression forward and forward in small steps. I think that's key. I think it's like the biggest mistake where people go wrong in modern day, training, hypertrophy and stuff. It's not through lack of information. It's through that chronic routine changing, and then undershooting. And so it just leads to months and years of just piss poor training. But that's how you can fix it. Have a system of training, be loyal to that system. Doesn't matter what it is, whether you want to pick Steve's or mine or somebody else's,
Right.
be loyal to it for a number of weeks and months and then let it build.
So you touch on one good point. I want to make sure we don't miss over this. If back in the day of the wild, wild west of the internet, when everyone was talking about programs and discussions, and we had a lot of really healthy discussions on forums, you would get somebody, a workout system would come along and somebody would discuss it and somebody would say, I got on it and got great results. Yeah. And as a coach, and I can tell you as somebody that's watching this video, if you want to learn, the reason why most people get really good results on random programs is because of what Faz just says. They hop from a random program or a program hop, they get on structure. Mm-hmm. That structure has a progression approach. And as a defined exercise, everything is built in for success. And if you simply follow that program, you're going to experience success. Yeah. Some degree of success.
Definitely.
Now let's hop over fast to the side of things that I probably find more baffling or more aggravating, and it's just the lack of passion over consistent nutrition. Now, let me start with I am not. You have to weigh your food type of guy. Yeah. I am not. You have to eat the same meals every day type of guy. But what I am is if you want to build muscle, you need to have a consistent calorie intake, a reasonably consistent protein intake, and you need to watch the scale to make sure it's going where it's not. And Faz, the guys that train hard but do not take nutrition seriously, they're just kind of like, yeah, I know, I should be taking nutrition seriously. I know, chuckle. It's like, no, you need to be taking this seriously. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was trying to ask you a question, Steve. I mean, do you find those guys that train hard and they don't have their nutrition in check? Do you find that they also end up not training very hard, or they chronic routine change, or those are the guys who want to change things around? Because I find if a guy trains for like a beast for 1 or 2 sessions, but his training isn't in check, he can't sustain that intensity. Like I can't sustain hard training intensity for weeks unless my nutrition is in check. I'm sure you find the same thing, Steve. So eventually, even the hard training guys, they're going to fall over because they're not eating right. Would you agree?
Yeah, I got one guy, and it's always a degree of variance. Obviously, there's a degree of variance between people. I have one guy that I really, really, really just he has so much potential. He's a young kid squatting 315 with good form and benching. The world is his. But we just can't get him to gain weight over an 8-month period of time because he does not take it. So with him, it's like a roller coaster. He kind of stays where he's at, makes a little bit of progress here, flounders there. But outside of the rare guy like him, yeah, it's pretty much the case. The ups and downs and, not being able to sustain progress. One of the common things I get, Faz, I'm curious if you get this as well, is I come, my bench is stuck, my bench is stalled, my pressing, I can't get my pressing to move. Like the first thing I say is, how's your nutrition? Yeah. I don't know if you run into that a lot.
It's a big thing, yeah. I mean, what I find is with lifters that come to me where they're relatively advanced and they obviously train hard. Like I've got this one guy at the moment, he's 230, a vegan guy, actually, weirdly enough, 230, like, great nutrition, has loads of protein per day, loads of carbs. When you see him train, he trains like an absolute beast. Now, with that guy, it's a case of he knows how to eat, he knows how to train. He's already played the game. It's just a case of programming him right, making sure he stays injury-free and keeping him safe. But I think until you get to that level where you've experienced some success and you've understood the relationship between training intensity and food intake, I think there's a lot to learn there on that, because I think people are undershooting that relationship, because the bench, food, but everything really. I think it all ties in together. But as I say, for me, the big thing is just that consistency. I mean, if you can support a good training system, a good rep system with a hell of a lot of food and make sure you're gaining at an appropriate rate that me and Steve recommend, then you're unstoppable. that it works.
Let's say, Faz, you walk away from this video and you're going to have a consistent nutrition, and you walk away from this video knowing that when the demon pops up called "I want to back off and wait," that you're going to fight that demon. Beyond that, is there anything that is missing beyond the obvious of consistency?
Yeah, I mean, we can just to finish on this. I don't want to go on too long, but we can apply this to diet as well. And you need to be consistent on something for long enough that it becomes habit. And if you remember me saying right at the beginning, people get into a habit of training at a lower intensity than they need to, because they're always routine changing, they're always undershooting themselves. So training at like a 5 out of 10 becomes habitual, in the same way that dieting awfully becomes habitual. So one positive thing to do is hire someone. I'm trying not to make this an advert for our coaching, but if you hire someone to take the reins for 3 months, making sure you're consistent, the shortcut to ingraining a habit is to provide accountability top down, so you are on that habit for long enough for it to become consistent and a regular part of your life. So if you don't want to do that, then just make it a note on yourself. Like, put a note on your refrigerator, put a note on your bathroom door. Stick to your diet, stick to your training routine, and make yourself a promise and owe it to yourself that you'll stick to this for 4 or 5 months and give it a good shot. 4 or 5 months lean bulk, where you're gaining, 4 or 5 kilos of weight, and you're gaining on all your lifts. Just let yourself see the relationship between consistency, food intake, and hard training, because it's a cyclical relationship. They all support each other.
One thing I want to end with one quick point, but before I do, when that demon comes knocking at your skull and says, I did pinwheel curls with 45 last time, 50s, I do not give a shit.
Yeah, I don't care.
Healing an iron, go move the fucking weight until you can, or let the weight decide if you can or can't get one more rep, not the random roll of the dice in your head.
Yeah, that annoys the hell out of me. You know what? I didn't try adding weight this week because I didn't think it'd go well. But did you try? No, I didn't.
That's yeah. So one final thought, Fez, and this is one thing we discussed, and I'll let you go. Those folks that have seen the best results usually were in what we call the tube for a couple years, like this place of intensity or super focus or super passion. Passion. And those that aren't in the tube, those that kind of have all the stuff, but they don't live it and breathe it. How vital is that a part of the process? Just like sleeping I went to go to bed sleeping of PRs, and I wake up sleeping of PRs, and I eat just insanely to make sure I back my training. How important is that?
I think it's super important, because if there's one thing that fitness YouTube has taught us over the last few years, at least, is there really is no natural limit. Like, look at the lifts which you made, Steve, just extraordinary. And I got up to a pretty decent level of strength as well. There is no natural limit. So if you're not putting in that effort to at least get to a reasonable level, you're never going to make it. And then time runs out. So experience the true joy of just being completely locked in with your training, your diet, and your effort for at least 3 months, because me and Steve can sit here and tell you all night that it feels great, but it feels amazing. You have to check it out. You have to live it yourself. You have to live it, right? Yeah,
and it's kind of like a danger zone where you feel like you're one part going to war and one part lost your mind.
Yeah, you need to experience it.
Yeah, you need to experience. All right, Faz, I appreciate you joining me. If you guys have any questions or comments, drop them down below, and we will get back to them. And please head over to YouTube, Faz Lifts, and Instagram on Faz Lifts. And I appreciate it, Faz. Thanks for joining me. We'll get you next time.
Anytime.